In this video, I'd like to show everyone the numbers that are being used in Coral Castle and how it ties into Fibonacci and circling the square and squaring the circle, because it all ties into the same thing. And what Ed was talking about with something called Sweet 16. So we're going to get into all this today, and I'm going to show you the numbers behind Ed's flywheel and how everything, like I said, ties into squaring the circle and circling the square. Because it's all about what you can see in space and what you can't see in counter space. Those are the two dimensions that you're working with. Space being represented by magnetism, which is the toroidal. Counter space being, or dielectricity, being represented by the square. This is the counter spatial drain of a 0 point. This is what everything is funneling into. And this is what Ed's trying to tell everyone with Coral Castle. This is the driver. Everything's funneling into this point of counter space because it's the lowest point. Okay. This is what I mean. In Ed's Polaris Telescope at Coral Castle, Ed Leedskalnin is telling you that this is the most important thing. This is the legend. This is the primer of Coral Castle. It's squaring the circle, circling the square. Okay, this is what Ed is trying to tell you. And this can be represented and shown by magnetism using this geometry of a setup with magnets. Okay, this pyramidal structure here that Ed has is looking directly at the Polaris Telescope here. Okay. Polaris is the North Star. This is where you get the word polarity from. Okay. He's using all this in conjunction with these numbers. Okay, here you have it again. Here's your pyramidal shape with your right angles. Okay, here's your right angles. Okay, when you put the magnets in this configuration, the magnetism now becomes point source. Okay, it's like instead of this being a flashlight, it now takes that broad beam and focuses it into a point, like a laser. Okay, it's called point source, and that's how this is working. It's magnifying all the power and putting it right here at the tip. That's why a pyramidal magnet, all the flux is coming directly out of the tip. That's where it's got its strongest stream coming from. Okay, so what I pointed out in my last video, this is the key, and it works like this. When you place this ring magnet at the tip of the pyramid, right in the keyhole, okay, it does this. It levitates off there. Just like the levitating capstone on your dollar bill. Okay, it does the same thing. Just like the levitating magnetic pencil here. Okay, you have your pyramidal structure here, and it's setting up a point source right there. Okay, that's how UFO is operating, by the way. Same thing. That's the key. Circling the square, squaring the circle. It's ancient stuff. Hidden in plain sight. Like I said, it's all about the pull from the dielectric center or counter space. Okay, let's get into Sweet 16. Ed would tell everybody that he built a castle for his Sweet 16. Okay, Sweet 16 is code for 1.618, or Fibonacci, the golden ratio. Okay? It's also code for the speed of the Milky Way, because the Milky Way rotates at 168 miles per second. Okay? And it's also code for the 16-fold pattern that is produced by Ed's flywheel, represented by the six-pointed star, because when it's spun, it produces this geometry in space and in counter space. Okay. What Ed says is he's always talking about his Sweet 16. Okay? Because that's phi. P-H-I. Just like in Philadelphia. It's in there twice. Because that's where he got a lot of his stuff for magnetism, is from Norman Hall in Philadelphia. Because the secrets to magnetism are on the walls there. Okay? And Ed was a Mason. Okay, so the other thing that Ed is doing is the girl that supposedly jilted Ed before he moved to America, her name was Agnes. And Agnes was supposedly 16, so that was supposedly his Sweet 16. Well, when you take the word magnets, what he's doing, he's removing the M, which is the 1, and the 6, which is 16. He's removing the M and the T, which is my initials, Mike Tulaski, and he's just calling it Agnes, okay? He's using the word magnets, and he's removing the 1 and the 6. He's removing the Sweet 16 and calling it Agnes. Okay, so it's really code for his magnets on the flywheel. Okay, which are these? These are Model T Ford V magnets. Okay, they form the V. Just like here. Just like here, the V. It's the magnetic vector of the Freemasons. Okay, and they're set up every 15 degrees around the 360-degree wheel. Okay. So, what they're doing is they're setting up the golden ratio and phi in the wheel. And Ed's got stuff like this hidden all over the castle, okay? This block here is representation of this major right angle, okay? And it's just more squaring the circle. So, when you get into the Polaris Telescope, he's telling you that this is the most important thing. This is the key. This is the legend. Because the Polaris Telescope is pointing to the North Star, Polaris, which is supposedly the point in the sky that doesn't move, okay? It's like the axle in the wheel at the center. It doesn't move. It's at the dielectric center. Everything else spins around it, but it remains stationary. So that's what this is pointing at. It's pointing at the North Star, Polaris, which is actually this. This is what Polaris has to do with Coral Castle. Okay. The Polaris Telescope. Okay, this is coming from Nikola Tesla's ghost, and this is coming from stuff from Marco Rodin. And this is coming from stuff off YouTube called a video that's like 7 hours long called Ancient Knowledge. So The Polaris Telescope is actually doing this. It's a polarity switch. This is what I mean. It's using Nikola Tesla's 369 because Nikola Tesla said 369 is the key to the universe. Just like Ed Leeds-Scanlon shows that these other numbers are his key to Coral Castle and his universe. Okay, so 369 is just a polarity switch. Okay, you can set it up with a positive or a negative. You got your 3, you got your 6, and you got your 9. Okay, Rodin and these guys put the 9 at the center. So he's calling it Tesla's 396. Okay. So it's doing this polarity switch and this flip. So we're going to get into the numbers on how this is working because all numbers have a positive and a negative to them. Okay, what it's doing, it's setting up this. It's this magnetic vector for the 0 point. It's setting up this right here. It's the pyramid. Once again, it's right there. Okay. So, Polaris is true north, and this is representing the V for Virgo divergent. And it's dealing with the Sweet 16, which is the rotation of the Milky Way. So everything at Coral Castle is coded because Ed just wouldn't come out and tell this to anyone. He kept these secrets to his grave. He wanted you to figure all this out. So the first thing is his admission sign. It's no longer there. It's sitting somewhere else. But it just says this, ADM on the sign. Okay? When you put ADM into a code like this, just by calling the first letter A 1, second letter B 2, you get this, 144. Okay, now remember this because I'll bring this around to that at the end. Okay. What it's all getting into, like I said, is this whole thing right here. Dealing with squaring the circle, circling the square. Okay, this is the most important thing that Ed's trying to show you. What his flywheel is doing, it's doing this. Okay, he's got 24 of these all the way around. So it's broken up into 15 degrees on the wheel, 360 degrees. It's doing this. It's putting 24 streams out into space and into counter space. But it's actually really putting out 48 because it's got 24 positive and 24 negative. Okay, so it's positive, negative. But it's also got a neutral. This is what I'm talking about. These 4 Model T V magnets do this. They represent 369. They have a positive, a negative, and a neutral. Just like an Egyptian Ankh. A positive, a negative, and a neutral. Because Ed said he knew the key to how the pyramids were built. Okay? So when you put this here, it sits perfectly there because there's no pull from this side or this side. So it sits in the neutral. Positive, negative, neutral. 369 or 396. What it's doing is this at the center. Okay. This is how it's operating. The center of the flywheel at Coral Castle is doing this. It's setting up a right angle just like at 9 o'clock. And it's setting up a right angle at 3 o'clock. And it's setting up a neutral center at 6 o'clock. This is Tesla's 369. Right angle, neutral center. Okay? This is the whole thing of the whole thing. Okay, so the magnets are doing this. It's putting out 48 streams. And at the center you have your hexagram or your six-pointed star, which is the shape of perfect Pythagorean incommensurability. So when that thing is spun, it's doing this and putting out those geometries in space and in counter space. The six-pointed star. This is what he's showing you at the center of his pond, because this all deals with the hydrogen subatomic particles. Okay? So here's what this thing's doing. Here you see the center of the flywheel, sweet 16. Okay, and what Ed's doing, his whole thing, he had these numbers carved into the castle, and somehow he got these numbers to be his citizenship numbers on his citizenship papers, which is pretty astounding. Okay, he said that these numbers here, if you understand these, you'll understand the keys to the universe and to magnetism, basically. Or you would have the keys to the universe, excuse me. Because in these numbers, it shows the golden ratio of phi, 1.618. The square root of phi, 1.272. And it represents Ed's 24-fold flywheel, the resulting 16-fold pattern, and a pyramid and a right angle. And something that I guarantee 99% of you, or almost higher, have never ever heard of, a word called prime quadruplets. Okay, this is the key to understanding this whole deal. Okay, you got 24 magnets, each take up 15 degrees of space in your wheel. Okay, you take your 24 magnets and then your 360 degrees in your wheel. And divide them, you got 15 degrees for each magnet. Okay, so this is how it's working. Here's the secret to the numbers. The numbers are 7, 1, 2, 9, 6, 1, 0, 5, 1, 9, 5. Okay, as you all know, prime numbers are any whole number that has only two dividers, one in itself. Okay? The first 24 prime numbers are shown here. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and so on and so forth. Okay? When you extrapolate this, you pull your 7 and your 129 out of here. Okay. You add the first prime 2 plus your second prime 3. Okay, so your 2 and your 3, you get 5. Okay, you add your 2 and your 3 to get 5. So then you get your 2, your 3 plus your 5, and you get 10. It's just like doing the Fibonacci, where you do your 1, your 2, your 3, your 5. It's sequencing like this, okay? It's sequencing prime sums, okay? So you got your 2, 5, 10, 17, 28, 41. Okay? So once you start sequencing your prime sums, you wind up with this. These are your 24 parts of your flywheel. Okay. When you get into these numbers here, you're dealing with 6, 105, and the 195. Okay, these numbers here represent, on a flywheel, the 105 and the 195. Okay, so here's your 105. Here's your 195. What they're doing is this. Okay, they're setting up this condition of this right angle at these numbers. Okay, it says there's a right angle of 90 degrees in these numbers, the 105 and the 195. Okay, they're 90 degrees apart. Okay, creating your right angle. Okay, 7 and 129. Then you got your 6, 105, and your 195. Okay, the 129 value is exactly in the center of the right angle created by the 105 and the 195. The golden ratio is what's so special about the angle between the 105 and the 195. Okay, it's 1.618. Okay, Fibonacci. Okay, it says prime quadruplets are the key to understanding the Coral Castle code. Okay, the 6, the 105, and the 195. Okay, this line of code is all about the prime quads and the angles. Okay, it's doing this. It's taking this pattern and doing this. It's exactly the same thing as what my wheels do. Is this. Okay. So here's an example of a prime quadruplet. 821, 823, 827, and 829. All values are prime numbers. Okay, all the values are here. These are all prime numbers here. The prime quads are very rare, so rare that there's only 7 prime quads under 2,000. And here's the numbers here. Okay. The magic happens when you look at the center of each prime quadruplet. Here's an example. 821, 823, 827, and 829. In this prime quad, the middle two values are 823 and 827. 821, 823, and 825 is at the center. 827 and 829. Okay, the center value is 825. Halfway between 823 and 827. 825 is not a prime, but 821, 823, 827, and 829 are. The prime quads are holding special numbers at their center. Okay, so it's centering their numbers. I know this sounds complicated, but this is how this is working. I'm going kind of fast, but this is the breakdown on it. So here's how it works. You see your 105 and your 195 at the center of your prime quads. Okay, at the prime quad centers. Okay, the golden ratio and phi are hiding twice in the prime quads. Here's where the golden ratio and phi are hiding. Okay, the center of the prime quads correspond with the angles 105 and 195. Both are at the centers of the prime quads. They also make phi. 105 and 195 are Ed's numbers for the center. Okay, like I said, they're his numbers for the center. The center doing this, and it can also do this, 3, 6, 9, and neutral. Okay? Just like the V magnets do the positive, negative, and neutral. Okay. The 105 and the 195 are at right angles to one another. Okay, here's where the 7 and the 129 come in. These are the sequence of prime sums. The 6, the 105, and the 195 are the prime quads and the angles. The prime quads sequential numbers. Okay, the 10th prime quad number 29 has a prime quad sequence of 10 because it's the 10th. Fibonacci and prime quads. Okay, here's how it runs in prime quads. I'm just going to show you the numbers in the graph. This shows the prime sequence numbers next to the prime numbers that make up the prime quadruplets. Okay? The center of the prime quads, they're not prime numbers. You have to assign the prime sequence numbers to them to reveal the secret. 6, 105, and 195. 105 and 195 are both at the center of the two consecutive prime quads. By using the associated prime quads, we can find phi. This only works for the two prime quads from Ed's code, which is the 195, 105 at the center. The first prime quad is 101, 103, 107, 109. His prime numbers are at the prime sequence positions of 26, 27, 28, and 29. The center of the first prime is 105, and it's surrounded by prime numbers that have sequence positions of 27 and 28. We assign 105 a prime sequence position of 27.5. We do the same for 195. The center of 144 and 45 is 44.5. Okay, so you got your centers here. And your ratio turns out when you divide 27.5 by 44.5, you get the golden ratio, or phi, 1.618. Prime quads help to define the reality we exist in. 6, 105, 195. The pyramid and right angles. Okay, in this you get the great pyramidal slope angle of 51 degrees, or 51 and 51.83 degrees. The right angle is drawn through the base. Okay, the ratio of the two divisions is always the same, 1.272 to 1 ratio. Okay, so it's always doing this. It's always giving you the Freemason V, the vector, or this, or this, because it's showing you point source. Okay. So if the total slope length of the pyramid side is 2272, then it will always be divided as 1272 in the upper portion with 1000 in the lower portion. Okay. It's the phi square root. Okay. When you square root 1.618, you get 1.272. Okay, we have a direct connection between right angles, the pyramidal shape, and the square root of phi. Okay, because when you take this shape and you bring it up like this, it's giving you this pyramidal shape in counter space that you're not seeing. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. It's showing you this. It's showing you the keyhole in the shape of in the perfect incommensurable shape. It's showing you the keyhole. Okay, and it is the point to where a right angle intersects the sides at the ratio of 1.272 to 1. Okay, so you're dealing with two squares. Okay, and that's what my magnetic wheel drive system comes down to. You got your two squares. Okay, and when you lay them like this, that's what interlocks and rotates the field. That's when the fields interlock and the rotational torque occurs. Excuse me. Okay, so with the two squares, you have the base of the pyramid is a square, and this energy pattern deals with the sun. This is what the pyramid interacts with. The square meets the pyramid at the position where the right angles intersect. Okay, and in the flywheel, the star at the center, which is this, star at the center of its flywheel. Okay, the star at the center generates the 16-fold pattern, which is this in rotation. Those are the points it's hitting in counter space and in space, in magnetism and in the dielectric. Remember, everything's being driven by the sink, or the pull from counter space. Okay, so what Ed's saying is that in his flywheel, that the star at the center generates the 16-fold pattern. The pyramid shape goes into the top of the flywheel. Okay, and your 7, your 129, your 6, your 105, and your 195, it says the secret to the 7 and the 6 is to multiply each one of them by the number of divisions on the flywheel, which is 24. So when you take 7 and multiply by 24, you get 168. Okay, 168 is the sum of the 4 consecutive primes. Remember I said that number 144 at the beginning at the admin sign? Well, 6 times 24 equals 144. Ed was a smart dude. He laid it all out in symbols for people to figure out. Because when you square the circle or circle the square, you basically can move mountains. And Ed proved that with his work. You just don't move stuff like that very easily. So these are the numbers when you're dealing with the circular or the magnetism on the wheel at Coral Castle, and that's what Sweet 16 is. It's Fibonacci 1.618 because it is the dielectric driver of everything. And that's what Ed was trying to tell everyone. That's why his Polaris Telescope is pointing to this. The most important part of Coral Castle is right there where there's nothing. The dielectric center. 1.618. Fibonacci. This is Ed's monument to magnetism. In the next video, I'm going to go over the numbers for the square and how it deals with 2012. So, thanks for watching.